Do you have a problem with A.J. Brown and the way he's handling this?
I don't, because I don't think is it going to solve anything if AJ just says nothing and acts like everything is okay when it's clearly not. I don't think that solves anything either.
BLG, welcome in, my friend. Never a dull moment here in Philly.
Yeah, that's well said. Correct.
Never doubt. Twitch, are you a big Twitch guy? You're a big Janky. What is his name?
Janky Rondo. Come on, J-Mac.
Janky Rondo. Are you a big Janky Rondo guy?
I've seen him on social things before, but I guess I don't know. Yeah,
I didn't know Janky Rondo. I apologize to Janky Rondo.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah,
I didn't know. But AJ's on there, and obviously, but by the way, I agree with him. It is a shit show.
Yeah.
Where do you start with this offense and what's going on?
I mean, it's not everything, but trying for it on 3rd and long, I think to me would be a good start instead of just giving up on those plays. You talk about finding more targets for AJ Brown. Okay, well, maybe do it on the plays where instead you're just giving it to Will Shipley to just give up on drives, and not just once, not just twice, but again and again and again and again. So that's not fixing everything, but that is a good place for me to start, is to actually try more than not at all.
I'd like to try now, because I still look at it and say, all right, you're 3rd and 14 against a team playing shell coverage and has Micah Parsons. I don't mind running a draw in that situation. My whole point of the Philadelphia Eagles is, why do they win? They win because they don't turn the ball over. You're inviting the situation you got maybe the best pass rusher in football. He's got 7 pressures. Didn't get home because Jalen Hurts did a nice job of avoiding him on a couple occasions. You're not a good passing team, which I think part of that is a self-fulfilling prophecy, no doubt, because of the way they play. But my whole thing is, if there's any time you're going to run a draw, it's 3rd and 14 against Micah Parsons in cover 2. That butt stuff doesn't bother me at all.
But that's in the DNA of this team, and they're doing it against not just the Packers. They've been doing this all year. I just don't. And also, when you hear the justification for that, I don't think it is always as eloquent as you just said there, John. It's Nick Sirianni bringing up these anecdotal examples of why that's good, and that's not the best piece of evidence to me. It's just these one-off kind of examples.
Well, my biggest concern with that, BLG, is if you go back to last season, there were about 4 or 5 situations where they hit draw plays for big gains on 3rd downs, but it was Saquon Barkley.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference this season is he can't pass protect, so they have Will Shipley in there.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is the bigger concern. It's they now feel like they need Will Shipley on there, who, by the way, isn't even a good pass protector, but he's just better than Saquon Barkley and Tank Bigsby. And this goes back to AJ's original point. This is a freaking shit show.
I think there's a better way to balance. I think what you're talking about, there's truth in that, but there's ways you can do it where I think that you don't have to merely give up. Case in point, they had to go for it on 3rd and 12 on that drive there, their penultimate drive in the game. And what does Jalen Hurts do? Rips off a beautiful pass to Devontae Smith. That's impossible, I thought. Or on their sole touchdown drive, where obviously they didn't draw it up the way they did. I'm guessing there, where Jalen Hurts dumping off to Saquon Barkley like he did, and him, taking it 41 yards. But you allowed for that to happen by at least, giving it the option, as opposed to just being 3rd and 7 here. We just have to run it and give up on the play, not even try to get the first down, really. So they have to give themselves more chances. Maybe it's not every single drive. And if it's 3rd and 30 or 3rd and 26 or whatever it was, okay, that's a different story. But when we're talking about 3rd and 7, or in that drive they get in the red zone there, where they take the delay of game penalty, which, hey, why not call the timeout there if you're not going to be willing to go for it?
I agree. The coach has got to save the quarterback at that point and call the timeout. I agree with that. I will say, from the standpoint of that first drive was unbelievable. It was great. And then they fumbled the football, and it was a great play. At some time, you got to tip your cap to the other guys. Great peanut punch. I forget who did it. I think it was Cooper.
Yep.
Edgerrin Cooper. Great play by the defender. To me, at that point, you're dominating them offensively, and then you went into a further shell. Like, that's the kind of shit that bothers me. Like, the guy doesn't turn the football over, Jalen Hurts. And the defender makes a great play, hits the ball on the button with the peanut punch. Like, why can't you just chalk that up to, like I said, tip the cap and go back to what you were doing, which was dominating them? And to me, they go back into the shell, even more so. Oh, shit, we turned it over. If we do that again, we're going to lose the game.
It feels like they spent the entire bye week just working on that one drive. And I was like, all right, we can do this. And then we have no answers after that.
But do you think it was because of the turnover or because they had no answers?
I think it's just, you look at every game this season and there's these prolonged stretches that come on here. I think I talk about every week where they can't do anything on offense. Yeah, like 3 plays, 3 yards, 3 plays, 8 yards, 5 plays, 7 yards, 4 plays, 6 yards. Like these just
they
stretches.
leave the league in 3 and outs. That is insane.
Yeah.
That is insane. That is insane.
That's insane.
That is bad. Now, at what point, and I've asked this, and I'm going to ask you, and I probably asked you this before. You know, and I'm with most. There's a lot of talent on this offense. I'm not trying to say there isn't, but at what point do we have to all get together and say, you know what, maybe they're not quite as gifted as we think they are, because there's been no evidence of this ever, no matter who the coordinator has been. There is no evidence that this is a high-level passing offense, ever.
Well, then that's part of the Howie Roseman problem in terms of just the resources allocated to this offense. You know, if you're going to be the most expensive offense in the NFL by a significant margin, mind you, like, then what are you investing in if it looks like this? So that's part of. I'm not saying he's the main person to blame, but like that, you're inviting that part of the conversation as well. And that's what I think ultimately people look at and are like, this is not good enough. When you have all those resources invested in this, it simply can't look this bad. And maybe it's not going to be the best offense in the NFL, and that's okay. I don't think that has to be the standard, but it has to be something more approaching that than it is what it is now.
That's definitely fair. I don't think there's any question about that. It's got to be.
Does something have to be fixed, or is this simply just us talking because it doesn't look? You know what I mean? Like, they are 7-2 now. My opinion is, last year you had this running game as the crutch. They don't have that. They've run the ball like they did last year, one game versus the Giants. You know, that's not a big sample size here. So I think it does have to be fixed from that perspective. But is it all just talking points? Did it really not have to fix anything? How do you see that part of it?
I mean, I think there's still potential for this offense. So I'm not writing them off entirely. We look at the team from last year and how uneven things were going into December, and then NFC Championship game happens, the Super Bowl happens. I'm not saying you can just bank on that again, but I'm saying there is still like a ceiling here that could be reached. I'm not ready to give up on that entirely, but I mean, when it comes to confidence in what they're doing right now, it's impossible to feel really confident about what you're going to get. Because like you just said, there is no like bread and butter running game. The passing game is not working. And yet they win, which is just insane.
It is amazing. I can't figure out how they win all these games, but they manage to find a way each and every week. We haven't talked about it because we've been talking about the offense so much, but boy, I think Jalen Phillips is a perfect fit for this team. And to be able to go out and play like that on day one with Vic Fangio and that type of situation, I think everything falls into place. Now Nolan Smith is your second edge rusher when he gets healthier, and Alex Hunt is 3, and I think he's not ready to be a starter, but I think he's a really good 3, and on and on and on. I think everything just fits into place. Does this defense have a chance to be like last year's defense the rest of the way?
I think that's just tough, considering they were like the best defense in the NFL and allowed the fewest points ultimately there. But I do think they have potential. I don't think this game against the Packers is just an aberration. Like, I do think they're in a much better spot now that, like you just said, you got Jalen Phillips. Love the energy he brings to the table, by the way, just that both as like a personality and a player. I think that was apparent and certainly doesn't hurt to add to this defense. Quarterback 2, I still think is ultimately, just going to be a spot that could trouble them. It could also be times where I think Dory Jackson, relatively played well. Not perfect, but like enough to just, not be this massive weakness that the Packers were targeting on every single play. I think getting Nakobe back has obviously made a big difference as well. Not just, as an off-ball linebacker, what he can do there, but specifically, adding to the pass rush as a blitzer. I do think I trust this defense. And look, even when this defense like hasn't played well this year, I'm never like worrying about the bottom dropping out. And I feel like across the board, they've pulled their weight more often than not.
Yeah.
No, they definitely have defensively. At the addition of Jalen Phillips, obviously, and all those guys look really good. But I don't know. I keep going back to the offense. Maybe I shouldn't. I think the defense is a big one. But, I mean, is it a winning strategy to expect your defense to do what they did last week every single week? I mean, I don't think that's a winning strategy. I just don't understand why we're asking so little of this offense.
No, because I think you'll see that this weekend against the Lions.
Yeah.
I don't think
you're not giving up. Yeah, you're not giving up 7 points against
right.
The Lions.
I mean, the thing that bothers me, BLG, is like, why do we assemble all this talent on offense? And then instead of asking them to go and win you football games or give you a better chance, it's just don't make mistakes. Just don't lose it for us. Like, that's what you do for things that are typically a liability. That's not what you do for the highest paid offense in pro football. Just don't lose it for us, guys.
Yeah. I think they're probably, this goes back to a wise man avoids all extremes, and Nick Sirianni never necessarily claimed to be a wise man. I think there are times where that strategy is prudent, and you could do that. There are certain games probably where that would apply more than other times, but it doesn't have to be your philosophy week in and week out. And there's a way to avoid turnovers, I believe, without going to the extreme that they do at times, and kind of neutering what they could do really well on offense. It doesn't have to be this conservative. It doesn't. They weren't this conservative in 2022, and things looked really good. And that's the best offense they had in the Nick Sirianni era. It doesn't have to be this extreme.
All right, let me play devil's advocate to that, because I'm with you by and large. I think this offense is ugly. It's ugly to watch. There's nothing I like about this offense from a standpoint of an aesthetic view. It's just ugly. However, like, their ball security is outrageously good. I mean, I think the number, what did Kerr say the number was? 57 touchdowns and 7 turnovers.
Yeah, something like that.
For Jalen Hurts. I mean, this is historic. He's through 9 games, BLG, with 1 interception. Usually the ball's going to bounce. You're going to throw the ball in the middle of the line. It's going to bounce up. You get an interception. Part of it is luck. Part of it is, and the Eagles hate that, blah, blah, blah. But again, sometimes quarterbacks throw picks that aren't even their fault. But they take care of the football at a historically good level. And that, to me, if you were to boil everything down and say, what is the most important part of the Eagles' success over this stretch, that's it. So if they even deter a little bit away from that, and all of a sudden, couple turnovers here, a couple turnovers there, maybe more explosive play. Is it a be careful what you wish for situation? Because maybe that 1-score game goes the other way.
I just think there are times where, again, you can like take shots down the field and you turn the ball over, and that's not a terrible interception. If you're throwing like a 50-yard attempt to AJ Brown. Yeah, exactly. So I don't think all turnovers are equal in that regard. Like, I think there are turnovers that you don't prefer, obviously, but you can live with that aren't as, crushing as some others. So I do think, again, that element there has to be a better balance of that to me, where again, not that you're hoping for the turnover, but you can live with it more at the expense of you're taking some shots. And it's the balance. There has to be a better balance than there's been, because when you look at it, and the Eagles are in a spot here where they're 6-1 in one-score games, and you can say, oh, they know how to win. That's not what history tells us in the NFL. History tells us that when you win a lot of one-score games, the regression is coming at some point. It might not be this season. The Chiefs last year won a ton of one-score games. They got to the Super Bowl, and maybe regression kind of hit hard, obviously, in that game there. The Commanders this year, look at what they are, and then there's a lot of factors into that, but part of it, they won a lot of one-score games last year. There's a bunch of other examples of this throughout history. In 2023, the Eagles were doing that, and obviously, again, at some point, you have to play better. And I just think, it's been working for them now, sure, but at some point, it has to be better, because that catches up to you eventually.
What percentage do you put on Jalen Hurts for the offensive incompetence?
I mean, it's part of it. When you're the quarterback, you're part of it. But and this was a weird game for him. I felt like just uncharacteristic game from him in terms of he's just missing throws that he usually.
Yeah, I said that too. Take philosophy out. It was just not his best game from that perspective.
Right. And I mean, that's annoying in a 1-game sample, but I'm not worried about Jalen Hurts' accuracy all of a sudden based on what we've seen this season's career. I'm generally, he's going to make those throws more often than he doesn't, unless it's the start of a new trend, which, I'd have to see more of that to believe that. So for this game, certainly he was part of it, but I don't think he was the only part of why the offense looked like that.
Do you think this coaching staff is fair to Jalen Hurts? Because they are extremely risk averse, to be kind. We'll use the kind term. Is that fair to Jalen Hurts?
I think there are times where they don't trust him enough and don't empower him enough. And that goes back to the third down conversation, I was having. I think Brandon Sirianni's own admission, he'll tell you that, number one, he believes in his players. Okay, then show it. And number two,
he doesn't.
Right. And that Jalen Hurts throws one of the prettiest deep balls in the NFL. He'll say that. He says it a ton. Well, then let him do it. There have to be more chances where he can do that.
Yeah, I agree. But it's interesting because you're not supposed to be able to win this way. It's everything about what the Eagles do says they shouldn't win at the level they do. It is one of the weirdest teams, one of the most unique teams I've ever seen. You shouldn't be able to play the way they play offensive football and win in the modern NFL. It should not exist, but yet it exists. I think if anybody could figure it out, they'd figure it out. I got to ask the question, and I'm going to ask BLG. I was asked about the coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, Eagles fans have an obsession with Justin Herbert because, I don't know, most of the offseason list had Justin Herbert above Jalen Hurts. If the Eagles coaching staff, and you had truth serum and sodium pentothal and everything, you had them in a dark room and said, would you rather have Justin Herbert or Jalen Hurts? My answer was they would rather have Justin Herbert. And then I was asked, would they win more or lose more? And I said they would lose more. And I firmly believe it. They'd rather have it and they'd rather lose more. What would be your answer to that question?
Wait, what's the framing?
The framing is coaching staff, Justin Herbert versus Jalen Hurts, or a Justin Herbert style quarterback, whatever, high volume passing quarterback. And which would they rather have? And if you're going Justin Herbert or the high volume quarterback, would they win or lose more?
Okay. I mean, anyone in this system apparently is just going to win. I think. Sorry.
No, it's a strange question. I get it, but
you're saying...
my thought is they would rather have I'm saying Nick Sirianni, Kevin Patullo, Scott Lepp, everybody throw in there, Parks Frazier. Everybody would rather have the high volume quarterback, but
Sure.
I don't think they would win as much. I should have worded it better.
Okay. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I think it's tough because I think the Eagles have a really good environment, and that's not to take credit away from Jalen Hurts, but when you have, I think the best defensive coordinator in the NFL, that certainly helps here. When you have, the best general manager in the NFL, that helps a lot. So, you're still in a good environment here. I get what you're saying. But I think what makes part of the interesting thing about Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, I think this can be said of both of them, they are like somehow the right fit for this specific team and this specific model. And I don't always know how that translates outside of this, but you can't. That's the thing. Like they're here, so it's hard to say that they.
I struggle with the insinuation that a better passing offense would mean that we would lose more. Like I understand what you're saying, John, because of that, but I don't think those other teams have as good of a team around. As good of an organization, as good of a.
I agree with that, but
look at Jared Goff. You know what I mean? In Detroit, again, they lost in the playoffs. I understand. I'm not trying to say they're perfect, but that's a team that throws the ball a lot, doesn't play risk averse, and wins a lot of football games.
Well, here's where I agree with that. So
Mhm.
if you take like a Justin Herbert and put him, he's going to be better than he was with the Chargers here with this system, with this talent, with this support system.
Defense,
he's going to be better. It's also going to embolden, this is my point, it's going to embolden the coaching staff to be less risk averse. And they're going to say, we have this quarterback. Now we can open up the offense. We can do all this shit.
Gotcha.
And all of a sudden, bang, here come the turnovers. Not a ton because he's a very good player. And I think, remember, they win at a high level. So 13 wins in the Super Bowl might be 12 wins and you lose in the divisional round. They're still going to be good, but I think it's be careful what you wish for type of situation. Like, I think they've tapped into something that other people can't do because of the quarterback. And he's very unique, and I think people don't accept that.
Yeah, I think turnover avoidance is a bigger skill than probably Jalen gets credit for. But again, to me, my point with it all is just there has to be a way where the balance could be better. I don't think it needs to be this extreme. I still think you can aim to do what you're talking about while also being a little bit more aggressive and still not, altering that equation entirely where, he's leading the league in turnovers.
That's how I like to look at it. I mean, who knew tapping into, to John's point, tapping into offensive ineptitude would equal.
Well, it's not that you're tapping into conservatism.
Well, which as a result of that, what do you get? I mean, largely we're going to.
Well, you get what you get is this herky jerky. Like it looked great in Minnesota. Now, very rarely it looked great against the Giants in the second game. So you still have the great games, the good games. But you have a lot of ugly games tapped into that, which is built into that. But again, you got the high of Minnesota and the low of Green Bay. I mean, you're getting both ends of the spectrum, but I think in the immediacy of they're coming off, and certainly if they had a different style of quarterback, it'd be a much prettier offense. There's no doubt about that. None. And this is an ugly offense. It is an ugly, unaesthetic offense. But it has been for years now. It really has. Just from a pure, this ain't Bill Walsh out there. This ain't, these beautiful crafted plays. This is, hey, we're better than you, and we're just going to do what we do. And I think there's never been a better stretch of Eagles football. So it's to me, it's be careful what you wish for, because they can be prettier. They could turn that switch in the offseason, go get a different quarterback, and they could turn that switch in the offseason. And they'll be a hell of a lot prettier, but I don't think they'd win as much. And that is the brilliance of Jalen Hurts to me. And I get it. It's an intangible. how do you quarterbacks, and for the most part, I agree with the theory that wins and loss are not a quarterback stat until they are. And by that, I mean, when you win at such a high level, I think that's a trait for that specific player.
Mm.
But for most, the mediocre quarterbacks, the guys in the middle, it's not really indicative of a quarterback stat. But when you win so much, it's hard to turn away from it, in my mind.
I think that's I do think that's a combination of a lot of different things. I do. I think Howie's been at his best in the last 4 years. I think there's a lot of different factors that go into that. But I think you're right, John, at large. BLG, last question for you. Do you have a problem with A.J. Brown and the way he's handling this?
I don't, because I don't think, is it going to solve anything if AJ just says nothing and acts like everything is okay when it's clearly not? I don't think that solves anything either. So I think it's important to express how you're feeling. Now you could say, okay, there's better ways to do it. There's more productive ways to do it. But for all I know, he's tried that and it's still not working. Because we shouldn't be, it's unconscionable. That is the only word I can use to describe the fact that AJ Brown has 3 targets in that game on Monday night. And 2 of them, are before that 4th down play at the end there. 2
Aren't
of them
they on the first drive, both of them?
I think they both came on the first 2 drives total.
No, first 2.
But yeah, so it's okay, and then he's just gone. It's almost like you just forget he's on the team. The team thing almost forgets he is on the team. I can't accept that the Packers, are playing all these coverages that just totally. How about run one of those pop passes to him? You can't defend that in terms of you're getting the ball in his hands. Okay, maybe it's not a good result, but why not mix that in at some point? Do something to literally just get the ball in his hands. Give him a chance at some point. There's no good reason for him to have 3 targets in a game like that. And again, 2 of them where it was actually, in the normal flow of the offense and not some shot play on a 4th down at the end of the game.
At Brandon Gowton, make sure you follow him on the X platform. BleedingGreenNation.com does a tremendous job. Your quick thoughts on Jaire Alexander, Walker. What a weird season, man.
Yeah, weird season. We have 2 players.
I mean, Darius shows up. He's happy. He's like, I love it. And then he walks away out of nowhere. Jaire shows up last week. Same thing. Thrilled to be here. I feel fine. Walks away. What the hell's going on?
He does seem like an interesting guy, so I think that's maybe part of it. I think it's hard for probably a player of his caliber to kind of reconcile. He's not the guy anymore when he's used to being the guy for his whole career, and it's not as simple as okay, you're a backup / special teams player now or a healthy scratch kind of guy. So maybe that's just something that, especially for the work these guys put in training and everything, maybe you're just I don't want to work all this hard just to not even play or anything. It's a whole different mindset. So it's weird. I don't know. It's also weird the Eagles messaging on it when they're over here, basically giving the impression that this why he's not playing in the Packers game is because they're ramping him up and everything. And then all of a sudden, a couple of days later, he's walking away from football, maybe. Which that's the other weird part, right?
He didn't retire. He might come back.
So I don't even know what's happening here.
Yeah.